Everybody, and welcome to Tippy Talk. My name is Tippy Felsenstein, and you all know how much I love authors and people who actually spend so much time and energy writing books. So today we are lucky to have Alphie Russo. The author of a book called A Letter to the Universe. Sit back, relax, enjoy as we welcome Alphie to Tippy Talk. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alphie.
Thank you so much for having me.
I love the title of your book. So really, before I go into anything else and talk about you, how did you come up with the title, A Letter to the Universe? How did that formulate?
It actually formulated after I wrote the book. I actually remember the day. I was in the car with my husband, and we're sitting there, and I'm like, we're just talking about the book and just saying, I just really need a catchy name for it, and I just want it to hold true to its content, and and I'm like, here I am writing letters, and my husband's like, it's a letter to the universe, and I'm like, yes, that's it. That's exactly it. And it just came to him, and I'm like, that's exactly what it was. And so that's how it was born.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Spontaneous. What did you do before you started writing? Like, what do you do besides that?
So I am a mom of 3, and I'm married. And prior to writing, which I'm still doing, balancing both, I am a director for auto insurance claims. And I had just recently moved to New Jersey a few years ago, and just trying to balance everything, trying to balance life, trying to read these self-help books, and be a good mom and a good person. And then the pandemic happened, and I had time on my hands, and I guess I used it wisely. So
yeah, I think you used it very wisely, but you said something really, really big that you skipped over. And I'm wondering if I'm going to miss it, but you said something happened. And I have a feeling that something is not a little thing.
No, you're absolutely correct. So, I was sitting behind the desk one day, and my oldest son came in and talked to me, and he actually was listening to me. And for any of you people that have kids, when a teenager actually listens to what you have to say, you're like, whoa, that's a miracle in itself. He's 19, he was dealing with the whole pandemic, and he was stuck in. He was supposed to be going to college, and he's just struggling. So I was giving him a little bit of advice, and, he turned around and he's like, you should write a book. And I was just so happy that he was listening to me. I was like, okay, this kid. And, I went back to work, and I'm working, and who would listen to me? What would I write about, And then the next day I was in the shower, and I was reading these self-help books, all of these things for all of my life. And I just got this download that was like, well, people would like to know, like, nobody, they read these self-help books, and I don't know, you don't get better a lot. So what if I actually tracked it and said, oh, hey, how did I get better? And what happened? And then I was like, well, that would force me to actually follow things that they're saying, because it's for other people, never when it's for yourself, right? And so that's how the idea started going. I was meditating one day, and it was like, this is your future. This is what you're going to do. And then I just started writing about it.
Wow, it's very interesting, because in the shower, a lot of people get in thoughts and ideas that they normally wouldn't think about. And then I was going to say, the other way that people get kind of something that all of a sudden they jump up is when they meditate. And it seems that you take showers and you meditate too.
I'm clean, and I try to, connect to the source, or whatever we call it.
Exactly. But the phenomena of the shower, of water, since water is actually one of the most powerful forces, because it seems so gentle and so and it actually molds into every shape, but yet it's one of the most powerful powers that it actually has for electricity, for a lot of different things. And meditating usually involves breathing. So it's air and
Mm-hmm.
water and a combination of both. That's amazing. So do you sing in the shower?
Yes, I do. I do like to sing in the shower. It's not very good. I would say that my family would probably tell me not to sing in the shower, but I do.
I just had a feeling that you do, so I had to ask you.
I definitely do.
So you decided to write that. How did you actually stop and take the time and sit down and write? That's always the biggest problems for writers. Is a lot of people I know say, I'm going to write a book, and 20 years later, they're still saying, I'm going to write a book, and they don't write it. How did you make that jump between deciding to write and actually sitting down and writing?
That's a good question, because it was not anything of my normal life, right? So normally, I'm very devoted to my kids, and I feel really guilty when I take a minute away, right? Because I have to work. So every minute means so much, because I would feel, it's the guilt anyway. It would stop me from writing. So I just found the time where it wasn't taking away from them. So if I actually would make myself, and I never took lunch breaks in 20 years, don't tell anyone that, but I always worked through lunch because I had a big schedule, and anything that was overtime, I didn't want to take away from the kids. So blah, blah. So I just shifted things. I was so inspired to write it and get a message out there of the things that I was feeling. And I was like, if I can help myself and maybe help other people, it gave me that incentive. So on a Saturday morning when my son was watching cartoons and nobody else was up, I would get up early and I would start writing. And then it evolved to, when everybody went to bed, I just lacked sleep. I would do it till 2:00 in the morning. I'd put on some classical music and I'd rock out, and it just was all coming. And I did it in the course of 4 months.
Wow. That's fast. That's very fast.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I really, it was every waking moment that I didn't take away from the family, I would just utilize that time. So I just lacked sleep. I took breaks.
So you're a midnight writer.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, I think there's a saying, burning the midnight oil. That's usually people that write after everything else is done in their life.
I was reading something from Wayne Dyer, and he's, I like my sleep. I'm not going to lie. I really like my sleep, but I was reading that, he said that if you're inspired and you're in that moment, and that's still your rest, and you get a few hours, and as long as you're feeling good about what you're doing, it's that rest that counts. And so it really did feel that way. Like I still had energy, and when you're inspired, you're like, wow, I can do this, and you can do anything.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful. So the story, the book itself, what does that mean? A letter to the universe. Like, what is the book about?
So for over 20 years, I mean, I got married really young. I married my high school sweetheart, and I became pregnant pretty early. And so
obviously you're too young to have a 19-year-old. Yeah.
I was 11. No, I'm just kidding.
I was born that way, right? Yeah.
So, I went to school at night, and after I would put the kids to bed, and I had to work through college and do all of that. And, you become a parent, and I'm working my way through the career, and I never really knew why I was chasing this title. I always wanted to be director. I always wanted to get to that next level, but honestly, I didn't know why. Things in my life, I'd read these self-help books. Why can't I find happiness? Why can't I align? And they were great, and I loved all of them, but I read it, and then my life was still the same. And it's funny, actually, I started this whole download where I'm writing, and I started looking back on my life and saying, oh wow, a lot of the stuff in my life was my own fault. And
wow, what a concept, right?
It's kind of crazy, because I didn't want to admit that. Like, that was really tough. And even as I was writing, I was like, wow, I was messed up. Like, I was not thinking in the right way. And then I'm like, so these self-help books were right. Like, but you have to take accountability. it was really very therapeutic to write the book, because I kind of watched myself as I was writing this, my own story, and I was taking accountability as I was writing it. And I was like, wow, I made everybody the villain. I never wanted to admit that I was where I was because where I was. And so those books really, that was when they started to work. And so I would go back and forth between my past. So that's what the book kind of does. As I'm writing about my past, I'm also writing letters and about what's happening currently. And so how that helps me evolve as I'm actually finding out the things that I become accountable for. And so it's my growth where with both, with reading these books and applying these messages, and then really thinking back to the reasons that I wasn't where I should be at that time.
Right. I think you touched on something really, really powerful that people don't realize, because I help people write their stories. And one of the things that happens when you write the stories, it is so therapeutic that at the end of the process, it's like a huge burden has been lifted from your shoulder. Doesn't it feel that way?
I got the chills as you said that, because it really was it. Even no matter what, I would recommend everyone doing that, because I'm writing this book and I don't know what will happen with it, but for me, it just it really did help me grow as an individual, because I was able to see it all the things that occurred that I thought were things that I wanted, things that I wanted to do, and they really weren't what I needed.
Or maybe not even what you wanted when you evaluate it and figure it out. And that's and another thing that's really difficult to do, and I think writing makes it easier to do, is look at certain things and say, if I would have made different choices, it might have been a better outcome. So taking responsibility is one of those things that's such a burden lifter, but it's also so difficult. Very
difficult. And, listen, I can sit here and I could say, yeah, that's what I did. I literally did have adult temper tantrums as I go through these things. I mean, nobody wants to admit it, but it's the truth. And I think that's kind of what I do in the book, is I'm really very honest. I put it all out there because I think it's something that people don't want to admit, the pieces of themselves that they don't like. But I think when we talk about it and we realize that's the human part of us, and it's good to talk about it, because if we're all having these adult tantrums, then maybe it's okay, and maybe they'll become less and less because we realize why we're having them, and it's normal. We're human. It's part of the experience.
Yeah, and it's actually okay to make mistakes. Actually, it's more than okay. We should make mistakes if we want to move forward. But admitting that we made mistakes, now that's a whole other story, right? So do you want to give me an example of one of the chapters of how it's laid out?
Maybe something that we haven't touched upon in what we were talking about so far is the signs that we don't listen to. The inside of here that we tend to block out, that for my entire life, or I shouldn't say my entire life, but the 20 years of the grind and working, that I didn't listen to what was inside here. And there's a little story about I wasn't into Christmas. I don't know. We don't know what it was. I don't know. I was having a bad moment, or I call them my adult tantrum. And my husband was so good. And, he kept saying, come on, let's do something. Let's go get this. So he takes us, and he's not a shopper. Okay. He's not a shopper. He's like, let's go get some Christmas decorations. That'll get you in the mood. So I kept telling him that I was questioning, should I write this book, and what should I do? And so I asked for a sign, and my great grandmother, Alphonsina, she, in my brain, she comes to me as an owl. So I said, well, I meditated, if I see owls, then that's my sign. So we walk into Michael's, and I don't know anything about Christmas owls, right? Like why would a Christmas owl be associated, right? I don't know. So we walk into Michael's, and the first thing I see is owls everywhere. Everywhere. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's just. So I pull my husband over, and I'm like, and he's like, I don't have time for this. Like, what are you? Come on, we're gonna go shopping, right? And so we get in the car, and I'm like, see, I told you. And he goes, well, it's just the law of attraction. If you say it, you're going to see it. And so he's doubting me, right? Okay. And inside, I just knew that I was supposed to write this book and do all of this stuff. And so we get home, and he's still not believing me at this point. And we're putting up the Christmas decorations. We're working our tail off. And then he goes in the garage and he goes, Alphie, I have this thing that's wrapped up. It's been in the garage for all of the moves. And every time I ask you if you want to open it and you say no. And I'm like, I think it was from my great grandmother. My grandfather wrapped it up for me. I said, all right, just open it. Now I'm telling you, it's been since we've been married, and we just had our 20th anniversary. So even before that, when I was a kid, he opens it up and his face drops. It is a metal owl candle holder.
A metal owl?
Yes, a metal owl. And the picture's in the book. I put it in there. And I start jumping up and down. I'm like, see, and you doubted me. You didn't believe in signs. And he was like, cleaned it up and he put it up and he never said another word about it again. But he knew, like, if that wasn't enough, it had to come back at the end of the day from a thing that was so old and from her. So it was really cool.
Wow, that gave me the chills all over. That's an amazing, and it's true, because people get that all the time. They just brush it off. They don't want to look at it. They're not aware of it, but they do get signs all the time. That's basically what you're saying, right?
Yes, and I'm the biggest skeptic prior to this. I don't have time for this. I got numbers I got to meet. I got the household I got to do. I got laundry, all this stuff. So I never, ever paid attention. And when I started listening and those things happened, and my husband, who's the skeptic, it hit him right in the face too. And I was like, oh, maybe we should listen a little bit more.
You do know that you're very empathic, right?
I don't. I will tell you that. No, but thank you. I will work on that then.
No, you are. You're very empathic. But do you know what that means? Empathy? If I explain it to you, you'll see if it's you. When you're around people and they're happy, it makes you extremely happy. If you're around people who are in pain, you can feel their pain. You try to make them not feel the pain because you can't handle the pain. Can you relate to that?
That's me. That's really me. I try to make everyone happy.
You're empathic. You're empathic. I'm gonna have to share the 4 powers of empathic people. That way you'll be able to actually use it to help you rather than to hurt you. And it's one of the problems with empaths. They, first of all, they blame everything on themselves, because everything that happens, oh, I probably did something to make it happen. And
oh man, that is me.
And then they try to fix everyone's problem, but they don't even know why. And the reason that you try to fix people's problems is because it's very painful for you, because you experience their problems. So you think that if you fix their problem and they will not be in pain, then you will not be in pain. But it doesn't work that way.
It really is selfish that I'm doing it then, though.
It's not selfish at all. It's actually very giving. But the process, when you become aware of the process, then you can do it in a healthy way that it doesn't really hurt you. When you're not aware of the process, you can make yourself crazy trying to make other people happy. That's the only difference.
Yeah, I do work on that. I never put myself first. That's always exactly what it is. You're right, 100%. Wow.
Very empathic. So that's because I think that only an empathic person can write a book like that as honestly as you did. If you weren't as sensitive, which it's basically being very sensitive, if you weren't as sensitive, you could still write the book, but you wouldn't be as open and as honest about it. And one of the things that empaths tend to do is they do wear their heart on their sleeves. There's no fakeness at all.
That's me. And people are like, are you for real? And I'm like, no, I really am. People don't understand sometimes.
Yeah, you're just naturally that way. And it's beautiful. It's very, very beautiful. So
sometimes it gets me taken advantage of. Actually, a lot of the times it gets me taken advantage of.
Well, actually, it's even more than that. What happens is there are people that can smell an empath a mile away, and they'll attach themselves to an empath, and they will suck them dry. And the empath always feels like maybe it's because I'm not good enough. I'm not a good enough friend. And they know how to manipulate you. And you end up getting really hurt because you don't understand why this is a one-way relationship, but it's really specific people, which is usually narcissists, or in a very extreme situation, it would be a sociopathic person or a psychopath.
I think I met a few of those.
But that's a personality disorder that really latches onto empaths because they know how to take advantage of them. But once you become aware of your empathic attitude, they can't do it anymore because you've called them out. That you put them in the light, then they'll run away. So it's good to know. Good to know, because I'll tell you, I didn't know. Yeah.
Explain it like that. So, I have thought that I was, but I didn't really understand it. But the way that you explain it actually makes a lot more sense than how I was comprehending it,
Right. Psychologically, it's a personality type, just like being narcissistic is a personality type.
Right.
It's the personality type that it's can work against you if you don't understand it, but it's a personal power when you understand it and know how to handle it and can handle it correctly. So it's really important to know, and that's why I pointed it out to you, because if you didn't know, now you know.
and it makes a lot of sense, because I just thought, oh, hey, I thought when you turned 40, like a light bulb switched on or something, and I was like, you know what? I don't need anybody's approval anymore. Like I'm just gonna do what I do. But it took me to 40. But I think I thought I was calling them energy vampires. I'm like, everybody's sucking me dry of this energy. I'm just going to do what makes me happy. But I didn't realize that maybe I was starting to understand that. And now that you put it into perspective, it makes a lot more sense.
Right. And there are psychic vampires out there, a lot of psychic vampires. Some of them are aware of it, but some of them are not. But usually their best target is people that are very sensitive and very empathic, because you're so innocent. You approach everything in a very innocent way.
Well, and I just, like my husband, he always says, like, I can't understand evil. So like, he'll be like, don't you see what's happening? And I'm like, but I don't understand it. I don't understand why people would want to hurt someone, or why it's so hard for me to comprehend, like,
right.
Intentionally. I'm sure I hurt people. We all do that, not intentionally, but to actually consciously choose things like that is so hard for me. I struggle with it.
Well, very few people wake up in the morning and say, who can I destroy today?
Right?
Very few people.
I hope not.
It's a very small percentage of people, but it is hard for you to comprehend that people will do things that you would never consider doing. That's what you mean. You would never consider hurting someone if you can avoid it. And there are people who will not take that into consideration if it accomplishes something they want. So they don't really want to hurt you, but if you happen to be on the way to where they want to go, they'll step on you because you just happen to be on the way. But you would not do that. You would not go where you want to go if you think that it's going to hurt someone if you do it.
Honestly, I think, and I always looked at it as a weakness until really recently, but I see the good in people. Like, even if somebody does do those bad things, I can't hold a grudge. I know that there's good in everyone. I really believe that. I really do. And so we make bad choices sometimes, but I believe that there's good, and I believe that people, no matter what, they can redeem themselves. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong with that.
Talking like an empath.
Again, but...
Yeah, you talk like an empath. You walk like an empath. You must be one.
It walks like a dog.
Yeah, exactly. So if somebody wants a copy of your book, which sounds amazing,
appreciative,
how would they get it?
So it's sold on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can get it from Balboa Press, who is my publishing company, and anywhere online. A Letter to the Universe.
That looks perfect. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do, I'll take a link to, let's say, Amazon or one place where people can get it, and I will put it right here below. So in the description, if anybody's interested in getting the book, they can just click on it and go get it.
Oh, great.
I think it's a beautiful book, and it probably has a lot of really heartwarming and beautiful stories, which is something that's really difficult to find these days. So thank you for writing it.
Oh, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. I hope a couple other people just try to find their happiness through it. That's my goal.
And maybe millions, maybe one person, maybe billions, who knows? You just put it out there and you let the universe spread it wherever they can. So if you were standing right now in front of the whole world and they're listening to you, what would you want to tell them?
I would say that try to find your life's purpose, because that's really the most important thing. I will say that listen inside and start only getting the approval from inside, because once you do that, that's where true happiness really lies.
And that beautifully said. I couldn't wrap it up any better than that. I'd like to really wish everybody a great year. I think it's not too late to say Happy New Year. And I'd like to really thank you and appreciate you taking the time to come up here. And this is Alphie Russo here with me, Tippy Felsenstein, wishing you all a great morning, evening, afternoon. And before I go here, let me just show you, this is my book on Amazon. It's called Wake Up and Plan for Roses. It is about planning your life consciously, because we actually plan our life unconsciously if we don't have an active plan. So might as well make it active, might as well make it the way you like it. So if you want the book, it's Wake Up and Plan for Roses on Amazon.